All right, everybody, welcome to the Sky's the Limit call. Thanks for jumping on. This is Trey Honeycutt. I'm going to be your host today. And the topic of today is Intro to Annuities 101. So I'm going to spend the next 25, 30 minutes really doing, I don't want to say a deep dive because I don't want to make it too complex, but my goal in the next 25, 30 minutes is to make something that most people think is super complex, make it simple. Because one of the things we've done as a company, so we took this concept of advanced market sales and we changed it to simple retirement solutions. What I realized is, even when I got started as an agent, this idea of annuities and helping people with their retirement and their money, that seemed like a super complex, super dangerous idea. Because when I started, I didn't have any money. And so my fear was always like, hey, I don't want to mess up somebody's retirement. That was when we looked at it like advanced market sales. But when you look at this as simple retirement solutions, which is what it really is, what you'll realize is with fixed indexed annuities, you really can do no wrong for the client. There's no way to actually mess them up. And I'll get into details about what that looks like as we go along here. But the first thing I want to say is, and there should have been slides. I should have went through the slides in the beginning, but the lock-in's wild. Everybody's closing sales here. It's crazy. And just to find a quiet place was kind of difficult. So, but first starting out, the thing I want you to understand is writing annuities is just as simple as writing life insurance business. The process is very much the same as the learning process of writing life insurance. The process of getting paid is different because you don't get paid on the next day. It's a little bit longer of a sales cycle, and you're dealing with much higher numbers. But understand, if somebody has $10,000 to $2 million that they want to protect from market volatility, they're a great annuity prospect. And then the question becomes, what makes a great annuity prospect and how do you find them? So the thing I want you to take away as we go through this is that the best annuity leads on the planet are life insurance leads for people that are over the age of 60. So I know agents, I'll reference Andrew Taylor a lot because that's who basically taught me everything I know about this. But Andrew Taylor's whole goal for several years when he was in the field was just to find annuity premium. Like his whole deal was, I'm going to run life insurance business so that I can find annuities. And before we dive deep into it, I want you to understand, if you're not using that portion of your license, if you have a life insurance license and you're not writing annuities, you're not using your whole license. That's a part of, you don't need any new license to do it. You already have the license to go out and protect people's retirements. And if you're not using that, you're leaving a lot of money on the table. What I watched Andrew do early on was he would run appointments every week to do life insurance sales. But the main goal of that was, I'm going to protect people with life insurance, families with life insurance up front, because I'm going to get paid on it the next day. But I'm going to find annuity opportunities and then come back. People protect their retirements and get higher commissions. So there were several times in this business, and if you're new, I'm going to wrap this all up for you guys so you understand. There were several times in this business as I was building it where an annuity literally saved my business. Like that annuity sale that I started in April and now it's September, that annuity goes through. That's a long time. I started in April and it's June, and now I'm getting paid on this annuity that I wrote in April and June. That commission several times, countless times in my career is what kept me in business. So if you're not using that portion of your license, you're leaving a lot of money on the table. But if it's because you're intimidated, which is what it is for most people, they're intimidated. They think it's complex. I'm going to make you understand this where it's not complex, and I'm going to give you marching orders and an idea of how to attack this week after week where it actually does make sense for you. And it won't interfere with anything else you have going on. But my big fear in the beginning was when I was helping people with life insurance, I was afraid to talk to people that were over the age of 60 because I thought the insurance was too expensive. And so my whole goal in the beginning, like I just wanted to talk to young clients because I thought it was affordable. Because I was buying life insurance in my mind based on my current financial situation at the time, which was not very good when I started out. So when I would approach people about higher premium life insurance products, um, I would get nervous about that. So when I would meet older people who had money for annuities, my whole mindset going in was like, oh man, they're not going to buy the life insurance anyway. And so I would screw myself up there. So what I learned though is those are the best clients for annuities. Like the person that you go meet with, that you show them, or you get on the phone and you meet with them and you show them a $20,000 policy for $237 a month, and they don't think it's a good idea because they have money in the bank, that's a great annuity prospect. You run into them all the time. And a lot of times they look like your no sales. They're the ones that aren't buying a lot of times. So having an understanding of annuities and fixed indexed annuities and how they work and what it can do for the client and how you're actually helping the clients is going to give you a lot more opportunities to monetize those appointments that you're sitting on that you're not selling. That's the first thing I want to get across. The second thing I want to get across is it's easier to write an annuity than it is to write a life insurance policy, if that makes sense. I'm gonna help you understand why that's the case. With annuities, there's no health requirement. The people can be sick and they can get them. The only underwriting is financial underwriting. With annuities, you cannot put people in a worse situation. You can't actually do it. Like there's a suitability requirement and Athene, that's one of our annuity carriers. If they don't meet those suitability requirements, they won't take their money. And a big part of that suitability requirement is you have to prove that you're putting them in a better situation than the situation they're in right now. Now, we're going to talk about some of the hot buttons for people and why a fixed indexed annuity is a great product for so many folks. But I want you to understand this. If you're taking down notes, ask a specialist is your friend. See, my fear when I started, and you got to understand, but 50% of something is something. And if it had been available when I started out, this idea that I could go on Ask a Specialist on the Gateway portal and ask for help and have an expert help me make those sales and split the commission, that will cut 6 months to a year off of your learning curve. Now, a lot of people are not really excited about that idea because they don't want to give up half their commission because they're thinking, I could just do it myself. The learning curve that you go through just to learn the language and how to present this and how to make this make sense and how to move it forward and how to overcome objections and how to keep the policy, keep the contracts in place where the advisor or whoever they have their money with now is going to come back and steal it back from you. Um, all of those things you can learn how to avoid all those things, the word tracks, everything you need just by letting somebody that's better than you in the beginning show you how to do it and split the commission. It's a great tool, but people get so greedy and they think I'm just going to figure it out all on my own because I have a $500,000 annuity and I don't want to give away, you know, $15,000 in commission. The first thing you have to understand when it comes to annuities is you cannot have a scarcity mentality because the opportunities are everywhere. They're everywhere. It just comes down to asking the right questions and getting comfortable having the conversations. So when you're on the phone with a prospect or you're on a Zoom appointment with a prospect or you're in a home with a prospect, the question is, what do you have in place right now that acts like life insurance? And just ask it like that. What do you have in place right now that acts like life insurance? And wait for them to answer. If they start answering and their answer makes sense, let them go with it. If they ask a question like, well, what do you mean? You say anything you can name a beneficiary to, like a 401k, an IRA, a Roth, uh, stocks, bonds, CDs, money under your mattress, anything like that. Lottery winnings, you know, and and let them answer that. Other annuities, I think a lot of people miss annuities because they don't ask people if they already own annuities. I've helped half a dozen people that already had annuities that were just accumulation annuities that were out of their surrender period, roll to another annuity and get a bonus and better lifetime income had they decided to turn that on. So it just comes with asking the right questions. So the number one question you want to ask, you should do this on all your phone appointments, is what do you have in place right now that acts like life insurance? The first thing you're always asking, of course, is do you have any life insurance right now? Tell me about that. You're going to inventory that. What else do you have in place that acts like life insurance? Give them a chance to answer if they get stuck. 401k, IRA, stocks, bonds, CDs, money in the bank, lottery winnings, anything like that. Anything you can name a beneficiary to. Now, you got to understand when you're asking financial questions, sometimes that's super uncomfortable because you're not used to doing it. So just know that it's a numbers game. In order to get the results, you have to start though. There's a learning curve in the process where you're going to ask questions and people are going to answer them. And then you're going to try to dig further into it and they won't want to give it to you. And that's okay. That's just part of the learning process, right? You're going to get better as you go. But you'll never get better if you don't start and try. The other thing I want you to know is you cannot say the wrong thing to the right person. You can say no thing to the right person and mess it all up, but you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. People that are interested in annuities where this makes sense for them, you can't hardly talk them out of it. It's just like having that life insurance sale where the person's going to buy it from anybody. There's people out there that are literally praying and hoping for something like a fixed index annuity. They just don't know it exists. So you can't hardly say the wrong thing to them. You just have to start the conversation. One time I had this client and I'd gone all day. I was in the field. I was driving, doing in-home appointments still. And I was 2 hours late. It was 9:30 at night. I was supposed to be there at 7:30. I said, I'm just going to drive to this guy's house. It was an hour away from my last appointment. I didn't think he was going to show up. I start driving over there and I get lost. I'm like, now I actually have to call him and figure out how to get there. Supposed to be there at 7:30, called at 9:30. He's like, oh, you're on the wrong street. Come this way. He told me how to get there. I get to his house at 10 o'clock at night. I go in, I start to try to help him with the life insurance. It's really not going anywhere. It's not working out. I look down at the table and I see a packet from another company other than Athene. I'm a big Athene fan. And back in the day, that's all we had. And I look down and it's an annuity packet, like an illustration from another company. And I go, what's this? He goes, oh, that's my retirement. I go, when did you put this in place? He goes, about 4 hours ago. The guy just left. I go, huh, that's really interesting. And it was a company I was familiar with. And I said, how much lifetime income are you getting with this one? He told me. I go, hey, if I could get you like $300 more a month, would you switch it? He goes, yeah, that was a $500,000 annuity. And I got it just by showing up and not being afraid to ask questions. So I want you to understand that those exist, but you'll never find those if you just avoid the conversations all the time. So number one question is, what do you have in place that acts like life insurance, 401k, IRA, stocks, bonds, money under the mattress, lottery winnings, yada, yada, CDs, anything you can name a beneficiary to. And when they answer that, say, okay, and don't jump right into it. You want to come back at the end and say, just ballpark, what do you think you have in there? And if they answer it, they answer it. If they don't answer it, give them a range, like 50 to 100, 100 to 200, 200 to 500. What do you think? And they'll tell you. And then at the end, you just come back around. All right. So we'll talk about how to come back around. But that's how you start the conversation when it comes to annuities. Now, understanding the benefit of a fixed index annuity, number one, it protects you from market volatility. The client cannot lose money from the stock market going down. That's the number one benefit. They can't lose money. It can either stay the same or it can go up, but it can never go down. The other benefit, there are no fees. When people have money in money market accounts or mutual funds or with a broker, they're paying fees on that to that money manager, whether they make money or they lose money. They're still going to pay fees. They lose so much money every single year in fees. And when you're young and you're contributing to a 401k or an IRA and the market goes down, you have time to bounce back. The older you get, the less bounce back time you have. So when somebody's 60 years old and their goal is to retire when they're 65 years old, if they have an incident like 2001 or 2008 happen, that can set them back from retiring by 10 or 15 years. A good question I ask people is like, hey, in 2008, did you know people that were ready to retire that ended up working at Walmart? And they'll say yes. The number one fear that people have when they're approaching retirement or they're in retirement is outliving their money, like running out of money. What fixed indexed annuities do is they protect you from market loss. And the second benefit is you can turn on a lifetime income that you can never outlive. I'll give an example. If you had $200,000 in a 401k and you're 60 years old, and you could take out however much you take out, at some point, that income that you're taking from that 401k, that'll go away because the $200,000 will go away. So let's say when you're 80, you're out of money, or you're 75, you're out of money, or you're 71, you're out of money, whatever it is. With a fixed index annuity, you can turn on an income stream that even when the 200K is gone, they'll keep paying you a pension-like income month in and month out as long as you live, no matter how long you live. So it solves the problem of longevity. It's insurance against longevity. That's what fixed index annuities do. So what do? They protect you from market loss. They provide a lifetime stable pension-like income that you cannot outlive. And the number three thing is they can help you in long-term care situations. If you end up with Alzheimer's in a home or whatever, there's several riders with different companies that you can double or triple the amount of lifetime income you're earning in those situations. So those are the three major benefits. People say, well, what about tax deferred growth and all those things? All those things are really important. But the reality is, the people that you're talking to, the question you want to ask is, let's say I sit down with Bob and Mary and they're 60 years old and they've managed to save, however much from their paycheck every single month. And after 25 years in the workforce, Bob has $226,000 in a 401k. That money is at risk to market loss. So the question that you want to ask Bob is, how much of that $226,000 at age 60 years old can you afford to lose and never get back? And most people, because that's their nest egg, their life savings, they'll say none of it. I can't afford to lose any of it, right? So those are the questions. And then just act really confused. If I'm on the phone with Bob and I say, all right, Bob, we talked about your 401k. I just have a question about your 401k. So you got about $200,000 in there. You're looking forward to retiring in the next 6 years. At this point, Bob, how much of that 200,000 are you willing to lose if you knew you couldn't get it back? And he'll say 200,000. I don't want to lose any of it. And I'll say, well, it's really interesting you say that because most people in your situation aren't at risk like you are with a 401k this close to retirement. If there were an option for you to get stock market like gains but not have any risk of loss, would that be something you'd be interested in learning more about? So when the market goes up, you make money, but if the market goes down, you don't lose a penny. Would that be something you at least want to get some more information about? He'll say yes. And you'll say, okay, we have a team of specialists that specialize in the financial services side of the insurance industry. If you'll just shoot a copy of your statement over to me, I'll take it to them. They'll give me some options and I'll come back and we can illustrate a few things and maybe I can put you in a better situation. Are you available Tuesday at 4? And then just set a time to do a Zoom appointment where you can screen share. That's how I would do it if I was doing it as a virtual sale. But it's really as simple as that. People say, well, what happens when they ask you questions like, well, that sounds too good to be true. How does it work? Say, I don't know. All I know is these insurance companies have been around forever and they know some stuff. That's it. Like you don't have to get into it. All I know is when I illustrate it, I'll show you in the illustration where it provides the guarantees that you'll never lose money. You don't have to get super in depth as to how the products work or why they work, because the more you do all that, the more confusion it'll create, right? You just got to keep it really simple. So, and the purpose of doing that is to set an appointment for later, right? So you set an appointment for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever day, and then you basically get them to give you an idea of what they have, give you a copy of their statement, and you take that to ask a specialist, or you take that to somebody in your upline, and you let them help you with it and split the commission with them. There's several people in the organization that are really good at this. Pablo Perez is great at this. David Ayers is great at this. Steve Stillman is great at this. There's several people that have written a ton of annuities in our team. Several more. Evan has written a ton of annuities. There's a bunch of them. And so, and if you don't want to use them, use Ask a Specialist and do a split. It makes sense to do it that way. David Allen is amazing. Brad Allen's amazing. Jesse's awesome. Calvin's great. There's so many great people. Daniel Byrne is written $40 million worth of annuities over the years. So there's a ton of people there that are willing to help you. And if you can just get over the fact that you don't need to take all the commission on the first couple, let somebody teach you word for word exactly what to say, how to present it, how not to be confusing. My son, Harper, when he was, 11 years old, so my kids play baseball. They've always played baseball. And Harper, um, his throwing accuracy was terrible. Like if he was standing at home plate and tried to throw it to the pitcher, it would go to first base. So he wanted to be a pitcher. So we were like, okay, this is how inaccurate he is, right? So we're like, we're going to take him to get pitching lessons. Now, before we did that, we were watching all these YouTube videos on how to pitch right and the correct mechanics of pitching and all these drills and listening to 100 different people that were experts on pitching. And all it did was confuse the crap out of us. So there's a guy in my hometown. His name is Bucky Buckles. He was the closer for the 1994 College World Series, Oklahoma. Okay, Sooners. He was a Sooner. They won that year, and he's like hometown hero. So he's a school teacher, and he does pitching lessons. Now he is a professional baseball pitcher. He's a pitcher. He knows everything there is to know about throwing a baseball and throwing strikes. Like he's really good at it, right? So take him to these lessons. He gets Harper in the little area where they're doing the pitching lessons. And he says, okay, Harper, throw it. So Harper throws it, and it goes like way over there. He's like, okay, throw it to the catcher. He throws it, goes way over there. It's like, okay. He goes, stand like this. He adjusts him, stands him up, messes with his head. He goes, okay, now throw it. He throws it. He gets closer. He goes, okay, I want you to throw it 10 times, just like that. Throws it like that. He's watching him. He goes, okay, do this, do this. He adjusted his shoulders. He adjusted his arms. He said, throw it as hard as you can. It's strike. I was like, what the hell? He goes, all right, now back up. So he backed him all the way up to the mound. He's like, do it again, do it again. And by the time that 20-minute session was up, Harper was throwing strikes. And what was so miraculous about this whole experience for me, the biggest lesson I've probably ever seen anything in my life, was like what he didn't do. It wasn't, dude, I learned more from what he didn't do than what he did do. Because we'd watched all this other training about all this exceptional, amazing stuff and all these ideas and drills. And he didn't do none of that. What made him an expert was what he didn't do. See, that's what you're going to learn when you ask a specialist. Now, there's tools that we're going to put in place to help you get better and understand these and become more competent in all those other things. But ask a specialist. What that's going to provide you with is an expert that's really good at having the conversations, so you learn what not to do. Pay more attention to what they don't do than what they do, how they don't explain it rather than how they do explain it. And if you can get those concepts down pretty quickly, it'll become second nature. So hopefully you're taking away from this. What I want you to take away from this is real simple. Get used to asking the question. If you're not doing financial inventory on your telephone sales, you should be doing financial inventory on your telephone sales. You should ask about their income, where their income comes from. Inventory the life insurance they already have. Ask, is there anything else you have that acts like life insurance? Anything you have in place that acts like life insurance, 401k, IRA, stocks, bonds, CDs, money under the mattress, other annuities, anything like that. Get used to having those conversations. And when they say that, when they say what they do have, you don't have to pounce on it right away. Just circle back at the end after you've helped them with the life insurance sale or not. Like if you're not going to sell it, if I have a 76-year-old man on the phone and I show him a $15,000 policy for $235 a month and he thinks it's a bad idea, I'll say, hey, you mentioned earlier that you had that 401k in place. Is there enough money in that to take care of this? Is that kind of what you were thinking? He'll say, yeah. So how much is in there? And now I can start having a conversation about annuities. I'll say, okay, you're obviously taking out your required distribution every year, but are you having to take out more than that every year to live on? Or is it just kind of accumulating? He says, well, I'm taking out more. Well, what happens if you outlive your money, Bob? Are you nervous about that possibly happening? Yes. Let me ask you this. That money's at risk now because it's still in the stock market. How much of that $212,000 could you afford to lose? If the market were to tank tomorrow, how much of that could you afford to lose and be okay? I couldn't afford to lose any. Well, I'm confused why you're in a situation where you're at risk. If I could put you in a similar situation where you could capitalize on the gains of the market, but not lose any money if the market goes down, would that be something you'd at least like to learn more about? Yes. You know, and if they give any pushback, here's what I'll say. I'll say, listen, between you and me, off the record, no strings attached, aren't you at least a little bit curious? Yes, I'm a little bit curious. Okay, if I promise not to put the bite on you and force you to do something you don't want to do, because I can't do that anyway, information's never a disadvantage. Are you open to having a 15-minute conversation with me if I can improve your situation? That's it. It's just removing the sales pressure. If and understand, none of this works 100% of the time, but if you don't have the conversations, it can never work. Like there's a certain portion of people that are never, they're not ever going to do it. But if you get used to having that as part of your process all the time, then you're going to uncover these opportunities and eventually you're going to start selling them. And when you start selling them, you're going to realize that they're easier to sell than what you thought they were. And you're actually really benefiting people because you can't hurt them because they can't lose money. They're in a much riskier situation right now. Let's say they have the money in the bank, $100,000 in the bank because they don't want it because they want safety and security. Well, that $100,000 in the bank doesn't make any money. So if you can put them in a situation with the same safety and security, but maybe they make 6% next year, or maybe they make nothing, but they don't lose anything, that's better than them making 0.03%, right? So it just comes from confidence and knowing that it's really the best thing for the client. My grandmother had an annuity that I sold to her. It was a $60,000 annuity. She turned it on. She got a $700 a month income from that until she passed away. And when she passed away, there was $40,000 left, and that went to my aunt, just like it was supposed to. And so, and it avoided probate. It went directly to my aunt because she was a beneficiary to a life insurance policy or an annuity contract. So these are some of the benefits. I don't want to just blab on forever about it. I'm trying to think. There was probably one other. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. I'll try to answer those. Oh, I appreciate that, Stephen. I don't know about that. What I can tell you is, the volatility of the market and people turning 65. Um, if you look at the growth of the equity markets in the United States over the years, a big fluctuation in this big spike in the equity markets was the forced contribution of people to these qualified plans at work, 401ks. Well, those people are all turning 65 and they're now getting out of the market. So what goes up must come down. So now you have people taking big chunks of money out of the market, putting them in IRAs, putting them in fixed index annuities. Fixed index annuities have taken off in the last year. A year ago, we were doing, Athene, as an example, was doing 3,000 applications a month as a company. Last month, they did 30,000. I don't know if it was last month. A year later, they did 30,000 applications. So that's a 10x growth year over year because fixed index annuities they make a lot of sense. They're a good option for the client. And this is election year. Market always goes haywire during election years. Yes. FFLAMS.com. Yes, that's a great idea. Hey, FamilyFirstLifeSchool.com. Make sure everybody's a part of that. They have all the SRS calls on there recorded so that you can go and you can listen to them. Now, how did you get good at selling life insurance? You got on live dials, you listened to people sell life insurance, and then you practiced it by calling clients. It's the same thing with annuities. What I would encourage you to do is to never miss the SRS trainings on Thursdays. It's noon Eastern time on Thursday, so 9 Pacific, noon Eastern. Every Thursday, Simple Retirement Solutions call is srsliftoff.com. Be on that every week, and then listen to the recordings over and over and over again. If you'll do that, the language will become simple. The questions will become simple. The scenarios will become simple. You'll hear people talk about scenarios that you ran into last year, that you ran into last week. The other thing is, I would say 80%, and people don't realize this, Andrew Taylor is among the top 10 all-time annuity producers at FFL. Andrew would book life insurance appointments literally to find annuity money. Like if you weren't 70 years old, he didn't want to run it. You know, what's really interesting though is the bulk, and I think this is probably still true. The bulk of his annuities came from annual reviews, from following up with current clients. So many people, y'all will write an insurance policy and you never talk to the people again. If you'll go back to your book of business that you wrote 10 months ago, a year ago, a year and a half ago, and just review what they have and ask them questions about their retirement, they'll actually be honest with you because they don't think you're a scam artist anymore because you called back. They didn't get ripped off. They have a policy in their hand. They're taking money every month. It's coming from America. They trust you. They trust you more now than they trusted you a year ago. So following up, annual reviews, following up with your clients, that's a great way to find them. There is no perfect annuity lead. The perfect annuity lead is life insurance leads. Talking to people about life insurance, doing a proper financial inventory. And I think that's about it. Anybody else have any other questions? All right. Yeah, Danielle just wrote one, used Ask a Specialist. That was huge. Heather's written them. Steven's written a ton of them. So, all right. If you guys have any questions, anything more in depth than this, call the carriers, call Athene, ask questions to the sales desk, tell them the scenarios, the suitability requirements. When you put a policy through for suitability, first of all, the SRS team scrubs it first. Then they send it to Athene, and Athene says yes or no to the suitability requirement. Okay, so it's pretty hard to mess it up. If you're using Ask a Specialist, somebody already knows what they're doing. You put the suitability through, the SRS team's going to take a second look. Then it's going to go through to Athene. It'll take a couple days for them to say yes or no, typically. Sometimes it's a little bit longer. And then once they pass suitability, then it's just a matter of getting the funds, which is a whole nother skill set, probably requires a whole nother call, but it's not that hard. If you have somebody that actually wants to do it, it's not that hard. It's just a bit of a process. So use Athene, ask them questions, use F&G in their sales desk, ask them questions. Look at the FFLAMS website.com. All those are great places, and the SRS calls, all that is a great resource for you guys to learn from. So I don't want to take up too much of y'all's time on a Monday. We do got this lock-in going on. Get back on live dials. You guys make it a great week, but this was fun. Anything I can do to help, let me know. Don't be afraid to reach out, and don't be afraid to ask the golden question and use your entire license. If you want to be really profitable in life insurance, learn to use your entire license. All right, you guys have a great week. Thanks for jumping on.